Tattvam kuru mayadhishtam apramatta prajapate madadesha karo loka sarvatrapnoti shobhanam. My dear king, a protector of the citizens, henceforward be very careful to execute my orders led by anything. Anyone who lives in that way, simply carrying out my orders faithfully, will always find good fortune all over the world. The sum and substance of religious life is to execute the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one who does so is perfectly religious. In Bhagavad Gita 18:65, the Supreme Lord Krishna says, Man manabhava madbhaktam, just think of me always and become my devotee. Furthermore, the Lord says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. Give up all kinds of material engagement and simply surrender unto me. Bhagavad Gita 18:66. This is the primary principle of religion. Anyone who directly executes such an order from the personality of Godhead is actually a religious person. Others are described as pretenders, for there are many activities going on throughout the world in the name of religion which are not actually religious. For one who executes the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, there is only good fortune throughout the world. The entire material force or the arrangements in the entire material world are so arranged that we forget the main thing. That is the prime instructions of the Lord. Krishna is telling here, be very careful, very carefully. Just stick on to my instructions, and nothing else is required in life. All good fortune will be there for you. You will find all good fortune all over the world. All good fortune will be there. You just have to stick on to my instructions, and the Lord is telling very carefully. And Prabhupada is quoting Manmana Bhava Madbhakto and Sarva Dharman Parityajya. And all we need to do is to be very careful to stick on to the instructions and injunctions of the Lord. There is nothing else required for good fortune. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying, concluding the purport, that for one who executes the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, there is only good fortune throughout the world. Text 34. Iti vainyasya rajarashe pratinandyarthavadvajaha पूजितो अनुगृहित वैनम गंतुम चक्रे अच्युतो मतिम. The great saint Maitreya told Vidura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead amply appreciated the meaningful prayers of Maharaj Prithu As after being properly worshipped by the king, the Lord blessed him and decided to depart. Most important in this verse are the words Pratinandayarthavad vachaha, which indicate that the Lord appreciated the very meaningful prayers of the king. When a devotee prays to the Lord, it is not to ask for material benefits, but to ask the Lord for his favor. He prays that he may be engaged in the service of the Lord's lotus feet, birth after birth. Lord Chaitanya therefore used the words Mama Janmani Janmani, which means birth after birth, because a devotee is not even interested in stopping the repetition of birth. The Lord and the devotee appear in this material world, birth after birth, but such births are transcendental. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord informed Arjuna that he and Arjuna have undergone many, many births previously. But the Lord remembered everything about them, whereas Arjuna had forgotten. The Lord and his confidential devotees appear many times to fulfill the Lord's mission. But since such births are transcendental, they are not accompanied by the miserable conditions of material birth, and they are therefore called Divya, transcendental. One must understand the transcendental birth of the Lord and the devotee. The purpose of the Lord's taking birth is to establish devotional service, which is the perfect system of religion. And the purpose of the birth of a devotee is to broadcast the same system of religion or the Bhakti cult all over the world. Prithu Maharaj of the power of the Lord to spread the Bhakti cult. And the Lord blessed him to remain fixed in his position. Thus, when the king refused to accept any material benediction, the Lord appreciated that refusal very much. Another significant word in this verse is Achyuta, which means infallible. Although the Lord appears in this material world, he is never to be considered one of the conditioned souls who are fallible. When the Lord appears, he remains in his spiritual position, uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord expresses the quality of his appearance as Atma Mayaya, performed by internal potency. The Lord, being infallible, is not forced by material nature to take birth in this material world. He appears in order to re-establish the perfect order of religious principles and to vanquish the demoniac influence of the human society. So Srila Prabhupada explains how the Lord was very happy seeing or hearing Prithu Maharaj's meaningful prayers. And the Lord was very happy that Prithu Maharaj refused to accept material benedictions or refused to ask for material benedictions rather. Krishna was very happy with that. Lord Vishnu was very happy with that. And then Prabhupada is quoting in the purport, a devotee's prayer is always to serve life after life. Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware Bhavatad Bhakti Rahetu Ki Tvai. Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware Bhavatad Bhakti Rahetu Ki Tvai. Life after life, I want to serve you, O Lord. And Prabhupada is giving beautiful meaning of this actually. So actually this Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware is not just the platform of Nishtha, but it is the eternal platform of the devotee. And Prabhupada is explaining how. Because as long as the devotee is conditioned, this Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware is very purifying. This is what purifies a devotee. Therefore, Prabhupada is telling that a devotee, he doesn't want anything material from the Lord, not even the liberation from the cycle of birth. The devotee doesn't want anything material from the Lord. So he doesn't even want the liberation from the cycle of birth and death. He just wants to continue in his service. So therefore, Janmani Janmani Share, because the devotee always just wants to go on serving Krishna. So this is the state of the devotee when the devotee is conditioned. Rather, this is called as a platform nishtha. So one level up, I think this is one level up. One level up. This is Ruchi, the platform of Ruchi actually. No, the third verse is platform nishtha. Tanadapi Sunichena is nishtha platform. So this is Ruchi. This is the platform of Ruchi. So this is quite interesting because now in the conditioned state, the devotee is wanting to continue service life after life like that. And Prabhupada is telling that when the devotee becomes liberated, then anyways he takes life after life birth with Krishna. So in the liberated state, so it's not that, so it's quite interesting. So in that way, Mama Janmani Janmanishwara becomes the eternal disposition of a devotee. So why? Because in the conditioned state, it is purifying, and once he is not conditioned, that means he has entered into the pastimes of the Lord. But the pastime of the Lord is to come to this material world again and again. And therefore, the devotee always accompanies again and again. So Prabhupada substantiates it by taking the example of Arjuna, saying that, okay, Arjuna is forgotten, but the Lord is remembering everything. So this is very amazing. But then, now one may say, oh, that means birth again and again and again. Prabhupada is telling, no, that birth is different birth. That birth, one doesn't have to undergo the tribulations of the threefold, fourfold, threefold miseries and the fourfold one-off suffering, birth, old age, disease, young and so one doesn't have to go through that tribulations in that body because that will be a transcendental body. So the Lord comes to expound, the Lord comes to trigger the religion, and the devotees come to spread it. The devotees come to spread it. So yeah, so that's a very nice, very beautiful explanation Srila Prabhupada is talking. So Mama Janmani Janmanishwara is a very beautiful state, the eternal state of the living entity. And like that, birth after birth, birth after birth. You you just have that one point mission of spreading the glories of Krishna. Amazing. Yes, question. Oh, how the different verses in Shishashtam refer to the various stages of bhakti. So the 8 verses are the 8 stages of bhakti. So, right? There are 8 stages of bhakti, no? There are 9 stages of bhakti. Oh, there are 9 stages of bhakti. No, so first one is so Adu Shadda Sadhu Sang, that is first verse. Bhajan Kriya second verse. No, Anartha Nivritti is second verse. Anartha Nivritti is second verse. Anartha Nivritti is second verse. Bhajan Kriya first verse. All first verse. Something like that. This is fourth verse is Ruchi. This is Ruchi. So Nishtha is because Nishtha means one becomes infallible in his practice of devotional service when one is humble. Then one can chant Krishna's names constantly. That is Nishtha actually. Nothing can stir such a person. He's become humble. Because he's become humble, nobody can shake him. Like that. So that's the point. That this is Ruchi. Mama Janmani Janmanishware. Na dhanam na janam na. This is the platform Ruchi. Ruchi. Yeah. Then fifth verse is Asakti. The devotee's love has become very Asakti. 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 Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram is Asakti. And what is the next verse? That is. So the remaining verses are describing bhava and prema. That is prema. Ashlisha vapadaratam is prema. Hanji? Bhava bhakti. Yes, that's how the division is. So both are nayanam karata shrudhare and yugayitam nimishena is bhava bhakti actually. And tending to prema. So, and then the last verse is prema bhakti. And I like that. For us, Tanad Vishnushena. Chetan Nadapan Majanam is bhajan kriya basically. So, Chetu Darpan Mahajanam is bhajan kriya. वही साधु संगा भजन क्रिया. Was that? One does not give up. Yes, yes. The activity of service remains the same. The devotee's consciousness and absorption. So there will be a difference because you see a conditioned devotee, his service is buffered. He's serving for some time, then he's not serving, then he's serving a little bit, then he's not serving. Whereas in Bhava Bhakti, Avyartha Kalatvam, you will not be able to find when the devotee is not serving. That is a stage of Bhava Bhakti. Conditioned souls, very. So the bhakti is sporadic. It is little bit bhakti, then no bhakti, then little bit bhakti, then no bhakti, like that. So that's conditioned state. So you will see. So we will see condensation as a devotee advances. So then because Bhava Bhakti is the stage of Avyartha Kalatvam. Among the 8 principles or 8 symptoms, Lakshanas of Bhava Bhakti, Avyartha Kalatvam is one of them. Right? Not a moment he wastes, or not a moment he can, devotee can tolerate without serving Krishna. That genuine stage comes. Very interesting. Raganuga starts from Asakti, I believe. Raganuga starts from Asakti. Ruchi means advanced stages of Ruchi and Asakti. Like that. That's where, after Raganuga is Bhava Bhakti. So Ruchi Asakti primarily, but maybe mature stages of Ruchi, like that. So till Nishtha is Vaidhi. After that, the momentum starts. So Raganuga basically means momentum. That momentum starts post Nishtha. So you can say Ruchi and Asakti that way. Is Raganuga. And then Bhava Bhakti. No lofty things till Nishtha. That's the point. Is it not? We get down to the basics. Is it not? No lofty things till the stage of Nishtha. So till the stage of Nishtha, we have to sit down and do our homework. Is it not? Diligently. Yes. So, so by the engagement in devotional service, the activities of devotional service, one's faith becomes fixed. Okay. We'll go ahead. देवर्षि पितृ गंधर्वा सिद्धचारण पानगा किन्नरा अप्सरसो मर्त्या खगभूतानि अनेकशः यज्ञेश्वर धिया राजना Vagavitanjali Bhaktitaha Sabhajita Yayu Sarve Vaikuntha Nugata Statha. King Prithu worshipped the demigods, the great sages, the inhabitants of Pitraloka, the inhabitants of Gandharva Loka, and those of Siddha Loka, Charana Loka, Pannaga Loka, Kinnara Loka, Apsara Loka, the earthly planets, the planets of the birds. He also worshipped many other living entities who presented themselves in the sacrificial arena. With hands, he worshipped all these, as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the personal associates of the Lord by offering sweet words and as much wealth as possible. After this function, they all went back to their respective abodes, following in the footsteps of Lord Vishnu. In modern, so-called scientific society, the idea is very prevalent that there is no life in other planets, but that only on this earth do living entities with intelligence and scientific knowledge exist. The Vedic literatures, however, do not accept this foolish theory. The followers of Vedic wisdom are fully aware of various planets inhabited by varieties of living entities, such as the demigods, the sages, the pitas, the gandharvas, the pannagas, the kinnaras, the charanas, siddhas, and the apsaras. The Vedas give information that in all the planets, not only within this material sky, but also in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of living entities. Although all these living entities are of one spiritual nature, in quality, the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have varieties of bodies due to the embodiment of the spirit soul by the 8 material elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. In the spiritual world, however, there is no such distinction between the body and the embodied. In the material world, distinctive features are manifested in different types of bodies in the various planets. We have full information from the Vedic literature that in each and every planet, both material and spiritual, there are living entities of varied intelligence. The Earth is planets of the Bhurloka planetary system. Bhu or Bhur, the same thing. Bhu or Bhur or Bhu. Bhuvar is one up. There are 6 planetary systems above Bhurloka and 7 planetary systems below it. So therefore, the entire universe is known as Chaturdash Bhuvana, indicating that it has 14 different planetary systems. Beyond the planetary systems in the material sky, there is another sky, which is known as Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky, where there are spiritual planets. The inhabitants of those planets engage in varieties of loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which include different rasas or relationships known as Dasya-ras, Sakhya-ras, Vatsalya-ras, Madhuri, and above all, Parakhiya-ras. This Parakhiya-ras or paramour love is prevalent in Krishna Loka, where Lord Krishna resides. This planet is also called as Goloka Vrindavan. And although Lord Krishna lives there perpetually, he also expands himself in millions and trillions of forms. In one of such forms, he appears on this material planet in a particular place known as Vrindavan Dham, where he displays his original pastimes of Goloka Vrindavan Dham in the spiritual sky, in order to attract the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada highlights in the puppet here that how there are these 14 planetary systems. Ours being the seventh one, 6 above, 7 below, and the living entity is everywhere. So the living entity is Sarvagataha. The living entity is everywhere. And beyond that, there are these spiritual planets, where there are this multitude of rasas in which one can engage in service to Krishna. Of which the topmost rasa is the Parakiya rasa, which is above the Madhurya rasa also. I mean, so Madhurya is flavored with Swakiya and Parakiya. So Parakiya being higher than Swakiya. It is so interesting to see Prithu Maharaj is worshipping everyone who was assembled in the yajna. The nature of a devotee. This is the nature of a devotee. The interesting point is, you see, the moment one sees anyone separate from Krishna, then one can become 100% miserable. Is it not? Actually, seeing anyone and anything as separate from Krishna is extreme tribulation and misery. But when one sees everything in connection to Krishna, then the material flavor doesn't matter. And once Krishna consciousness is enhanced. That is the point. The material flavor doesn't matter. Once Krishna consciousness is enhanced. So that's the point. But if one sees things separate from Krishna, then one is simply in tribulation and misery. So here we see Prithu Maharaj is worshipping everyone because he is refusing to see anyone as separate from Krishna. So he is worshipping not just the demigods, he is worshipping the Gandharvas, he is worshipping the Apsaras, he is worshipping the birds, he is worshipping every living entity. Is it not? And he is worshipping every living entity. This is so amazing. Is it not? So rather, this is the formula of driving unaffected in this world. In this world, one stands a great chance to become affected, inflicted, affected. But one can only be unaffected if one drives in this way, seeing everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. Yeah. Seeing everyone as a part and parcel of Krishna. This is so amazing, actually. In this way, one will be able to enhance his service to Krishna without getting caught up and entangled, either in attachment or in aversion, either in envy or in infatuation. Mm. Yeah, that's very true. So one sees the uh, yeah. So let's say suppose one is preaching, so one sees a positive example of one who's taking to Krishna consciousness. Then one is very happy seeing that example. That okay, that no, one is very happy that okay, Krishna is I'm able to offer that service. Let me offer more service. No? Let me offer more service. If one sees a negative example, one can take a lesson how strong Maya is, Is it not? So then a devotee feels, okay, let me offer some more service to Krishna. Is it not? Maya has increased her gear. So I also have to serve Krishna more. Is it not? And attempt more. Is it not? So that's the point actually. If one sees a positive example of a devotee, then one wants to serve, do Vaishnava Seva, take inspiration. And one is very happy seeing that how Krishna is being served so nicely. I can also assist, one feels. If one sees a negative example of person in Maya, then one takes a lesson. Oh, what one should not do. Is it that how strong Maya is? and one feels fortunate that by Krishna's mercy, the devotee's mercy, I have been saved. Now I don't have to live such a hellish life, horror, horrifying life, ghastly life. So devotee feels, okay, let me offer my service to Krishna. Is it not? Let me take greater shelter of Krishna. So the material flavor, so when we see things no, as not separate from Krishna, then the material flavor, whatever be the case, one's Krishna consciousness will be enhanced. And one can drive through this world. But if you see things separate from Krishna, oh, it's going to be very difficult. The drive is very difficult. One gets entangled. Aversion, attachment, both entangled. Hatred, infatuation, both entangled. So that's quite interesting here. Now we have, okay. Bhagavan api Raja Rishihi Sopadhya Yasya Chat Achyuta Haran Eva Mano Amusya Sadhama Pratyupadyata. The infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, having captivated the minds of the king and the priests who were all present, returned to his abode in the spiritual sky. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all spiritual, he can descend from the spiritual sky without changing his body. And thus he is known as Achyuta, or infallible. When a living entity falls down to the material world, however, he has to accept a material body. And therefore, in his material embodiment, he cannot be called Achyuta. Because he falls down from his real engagement in the service of the Lord, the living entity gets a material body to or try to enjoy in the miserable conditions of life, or the miserable material conditions of life. You have to suffer or try to enjoy in the miserable material conditions of life. Therefore, the fallen living entity is Chuta, whereas the Lord is Achyuta. The Lord was attractive for everyone. Not only the king, but also the priestly order, who was very much addicted to the performance of Vedic rituals. Because it's all attractive, he is called Krishna, or one who attracts everyone. In the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, who is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. He is the second incarnation from Karanodakshai Vishnu, who is the origin of the material creation and who expands as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And who then enters into each and every universe. Kshirodakshai Vishnu is one of the Purushas who controls the material modes of nature. So this is very amazing. The infallible Supreme Lord has captivated the minds of, the only mention is here, the king and the priests. Only mention is king and the priests. Yeah. Who will present? The king, because he was having devotion, and the priests, because they were very much attached to the Vedic process of purification, and therefore they were purified enough to be attracted. Is it? A rusted iron will not be attracted to a magnet. No, the rust has to be filed off. Is it not? The rust has to be filed off. So attraction for Krishna is natural, and to that degree, to the degree the attraction for Krishna is not naturally overflowing, to that degree there is conditioning and lust in our hearts, lust and rust. So therefore, because there is a lot of lust and rust, sadhana is a must. That way, so that the rust and the lust, the rust of the lust gets goes off. Is it not? Goes off. That's the point. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. The Supreme Lord has captivated the mind. Krishna can captivate. Well, Krishna captivates. There is natural captivation towards Krishna. We need to purify our hearts to do that. So we will see the heart becomes pure. The same purport of Srila Prabhupada, the same chanting of the holy names, the same Mangalarti can attract us, and in an overwhelming manner, more and more and more. That's the point. Adrishtaya namaskritya nipasandar sitatmane अव्यक्तया च देवानां देवया स्वपुरं ययो. King Prithu then offered his respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Lord of all the demigods. Although not an object of material vision, the Lord revealed himself to the sight of Prithu Maharaj. After offering obeisances to the Lord, the king returned to his home. The Supreme Lord is not visible to material eyes, but when the material senses are inclined to the transcendental loving service of the Lord and are thus purified, the Lord reveals himself to the vision of a devotee. Avyakta means unmanifested. Although the material world is a creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is unmanifested to the material eyes. Maharaj Prithu, however, developed spiritual eyes by his pure devotion and service. Here, therefore, the Lord is described as Sandarsitatma, for he reveals himself to the vision of a devotee, although he is not visible to ordinary eyes. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 20th chapter of Srimad Bhagwatam, entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena of Prithu. And with that, we begin with the 21st chapter, which is Instructions by Maharaj Prithu. Chapter 21, text 1. Maitreya Uvacha Mauktikaya Kusuma Shragabhi Dukulaye Swarnatoranaye Mahasurabhibhi Dhupe Manditam Tatra Tatra Vai. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the king entered his city, it was very beautifully decorated. To receive him with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth